Councillors, I request a mover and seconder for confirmation of minutes. Moved by Councillor Pollock, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillors, are there any questions or debate? Councillor McGinley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. In reading the minutes and in viewing Council's edited broadcast of that particular meeting, I would like to suggest that there be an addition to the minutes as they currently stand, and that addition would take the form of something along the following lines. Excuse me, I'll just read it. That the minutes note at the appropriate item that approximately 12 minutes of the video stream and webcast record has been expunged upon legal advice. The reason to do that is simply anyone who attended that particular meeting or happened to watch it live streaming would have a totally different understanding of what occurred from anyone trying to check out in the future what actually happened on that day. Because the webcast was edited by approximately 12 minutes, and because the minutes make absolutely no notation that such a thing happened, you actually have essentially a false record of what occurred. I'm not suggesting we go into the details, but simply the words I outlined would give someone in the future some recourse to know that on that day something happened whereby, upon legal advice, Council saw fit to edit the actual webcast. So I'd like to put that forward as an amendment, if I could.
Just 1 minute. Have I got a seconder, councillors, for an amendment?
Sorry? Oh, I was just going to say, they can. I just thought they could have changed it if they wished to, that's all, rather than go for an amendment.
No, I'm seeking a seconder for an amendment.
Madam Mayor, can I just, was that written up there? I'm not sure if that was seeking clarification in that, does the council need to pinpoint the actual aspect that's been spoken to, or is it just a blanket?
Councillor, why not for the for debate? If you would second it, then we can discuss it, an amendment. Okay. So it's been moved by Councillor McGinley, seconded by Councillor Mayne. Councillors, any questions or debate regarding the proposed amendment? Councillor, you might like to read it out again for the benefit of your fellow councillors.
Certainly, Madam Mayor. That the minutes note that at the appropriate item that approximately 12 minutes of the video stream and webcast record was expunged upon legal advice. Sorry, some people was asking what expunged means. Edited, retracted, removed, got rid of.
Councillors. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, can I just have some clarity on the
Certainly.
The circumstances around should this go ahead? I'm a little bit concerned. We've got issues regarding this. So.
I'm going to ask the General Manager to address and give you some clarity around this particular amendment.
Through the Mayor, so under Council's Code of Meeting Practice 16.2, it clearly articulates what is in the Council minutes. The webcast is not, repeat, not a part of the Council minutes. It never has been. And so that would be a change in relation to what is meant to be in the minutes, which is not the webcast. I'll also make the point that on the webcast that there is a notation already that says that the webcast has been edited due to legal reasons. So if people look at the webcast, that is already on the screen.
General Manager, I'm just going to ask you, is this normal practice that we would amend the minutes in such a manner?
Well, through the Mayor, or to the Mayor, because it is not part of the council minutes under our current code of conduct, it would be absolutely not usual practice.
Councillors, any further questions or debate before I put the amendment to the vote? Councillor McGinley.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I'd just like to comment to my fellow councillors. We've just heard a comment that it's not common practice. It's not been common practice since I've been sitting in this chamber for 2.5 years to edit the video stream. It has been common practice through public forum to video stream them and to have them on the public record. So to say it's never been part of the meeting, but it has been part of our process. And obviously at some stage in a previous council, at least 5 out of 9 previous councillors agreed that that should be the case, and that practice was adopted by council resolution, obviously. So I would say it is common practice, and if we're deviating from common practice, as I experience it, we should have some notation on the minutes for those people who do not have access to computers, who cannot find stuff easily on the webcast, and they can have their access to a very brief explanation of why we took the step of eliminating 12 minutes of our debate.
Councillor, can I just ask you a question? If as you said, that somebody didn't have access to the webcast, would they be unaware that this had taken place anyway? And it is on the webcast, an explanation of why it has been removed.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would simply say some people don't view the webcast, they view the minutes to see what's happening. That's their habit, that's what they've always done. So, yes, that's their medium.
Sorry, there has been no previous record of that in the minutes?
No record of that. I'm getting lost in my
Sorry,
last.
of the public forum presentations in the minutes?
Beg your pardon, but don't we often see in the minutes that a speaker has requested a 3-minute extension?
Yeah.
You get the name of the councillor who moved it, the name of the councillor who seconded, and the result, whether it's carried or not, that's in the minutes. So we are covering the fact that they exist in the minutes.
Yes, okay. I do see your point. Look, I'm just going to get some clarity around that, councillor.
Through the Mayor, to clarify, the minutes indicate who did address public forum, the name of the person and their item. The person's presentation is attached if they have given it. In this case, what occurred last meeting was that the speaker refused to present their presentation. So that is not in the minutes, but the webcast itself is not part of the minutes and has never been referred to.
Councillor Nathan, you didn't want to ask a question. Councillor Main.
Thank you. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through you, thanks, Councillor McGinley. It's an interesting debate. I can't help, and I appreciate the technical advice, and that makes sense at a level. I'm a little bit concerned, though, if we don't put any notation in here, and that's pretty innocuous. All it's simply doing is saying that maybe calling it an extraordinary event is too strong language. We had an unusual matter in which this council's taken a decision to expunge 12 minutes of live streaming on obviously legal advice. But again, purely for the basis of transparency, to acknowledge this unusual event has occurred, I think this is more helpful than not, and it's worth considering. Thank you.
Councillor Nathan.
I was trying to phrase my question. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was not at that meeting because of health reasons, which came up rather suddenly. But I'm wondering whether Councillor McGinley's suggestion would be better positioned on the public forum agenda items only number 3, and just say, and then put his amendment that exactly as he said, because it is relating purely to a part of public forum, and the way it's phrased there, it implies it could be anywhere. I know you said at the appropriate place, but I would be happier to support it if the minutes note in public forum agenda items only that 12 minutes of the video stream of public forum was expunged on legal advice.
So, Councillor, I think there is some merit to what Councillor Nathan is saying, and if you look at where perhaps what you're asking to be included could be put in is on the extension and the motion that Mr Bernard be granted an extension of 3 minutes to complete his presentation. It was lost. We could perhaps put a note noting that on the webcast this section of the presentation or the council meeting has been expunged from the record due to ...
That's the intent of what I'm trying to get. I'd put it before that part about the extension of time, just put the notation before it, and then have, there was an extension, it was lost, whatever. But I'm happy for the wording to be changed to specify where it's located. Thank you, Councillor Nathan.
Yes, a
Councillor
question
Nathan.
again, Madam Mayor. Because of the legal advice, are we better to keep it simply generic in the section of the council meeting, i.e. public forum, rather than allocating it specifically to a
Yes, I
person?
agree. Probably it should go there. Councillors, though, look, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that we are setting a precedent here. So I need you to be very clear on that this will, be common practice thereafter. Just letting you be aware of that.
Just to assist the councillors, I'll just go back to 16.1. The council must ensure the full and accurate minutes are kept of the proceedings of the meeting. This did not occur at the meeting. This is the webcast that is a result of the public forum. So nothing occurred in the meeting in relation to into this edit. So just be mindful that that is contrary to what part 16.1 is saying.
I'm going to ask members of the gallery, if you would like to have conversations, to please remove yourself from the chamber. Thank you. Councillor Nathan.
Another question. I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, but because we open the meeting and then go into public forum, and there is a short and brief notation of the speakers, I'm very confused as to the General Manager's comment about the meeting and public forum. And how the two jibe together, bearing in mind that one of the reasons that OLG has recommended a policy which is very different to what we have been doing, I'm beginning to understand why OLG has recommended the changes for the Code of Meeting Practice for 2018.
Well, through the Mayor. So the point of reading that passage is to say the webcast is a recording of what happens, but the editing occurred after the council meeting. So it's not part of the meeting. That's what my point is.
Councillors, if there's no further debates or questions on this matter, Councillor Pollock.
I think, just for the interest of people trying to get their brain around this, the minutes are a record of the decisions of council. They are not a verbatim description of what goes on in the meeting. So there was a time, only once or twice, under a long time ago under a previous mayor, that there was a move to include particular opinions and peripheral information. But the minutes are consistently a record of decisions of the council, full stop.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm going to put the amendment, so it's currently on the board. Councillors, I'm going to ask those in favour of the amendment. It's been lost. So we go back to the adoption of the minutes.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'd seek to make an amendment to the minutes to more be a wholesome report with regard particularly to Mr Barnard's presentation, and with that I think it should be enunciated that he was asked by the Mayor to apologise on a matter, and his apology was accepted by the Mayor. I don't know how to put the words around that, but that would give a more fulsome indication of actually the achievement and the activity that happened at that time.
Councillor, have you got that document? Councillor, again, we do not normally record whether a member of the community has been asked to make an apology and whether they have or haven't done that. And also, Councillor, I know that you've been advised that it was a procedural motion that was put, wasn't put, sorry. So, Councillor, I'm not quite sure of what your amendment is.
My amendment is indicating just a quick notation. Mr Barnard was asked to apologise for inappropriate behaviour and did so.
Councillor, again, we've never done this before. Okay, so I have an amendment before you, councillors. Do I have a seconder? So it has been moved by Councillor Constable to include the following amendment, that the minutes reflect that Mr Barnard was asked to apologise and it was accepted. It's seconded by Councillor McGinley. Councillors, any questions or debate on the amendment? Councillor Nathan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My ignorance in procedures was shown up beautifully by the excellent answer by Councillor Pollock, who put the information before me very succinctly, that the minutes are simply the motions that are put and carried. And then I had a good look at the minutes in comparison to all the preamble and all the information and all the submissions, etc., that we get when matters come to council. So the discussions are in that phrase, in the phase of the meeting, but then the minutes of the meeting, as Councillor Pollock said, are very succinct and very brief. So for that reason, I would speak against Councillor Constable's motion.
Councillor Mayne?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, through you. Look, must say, this is a really interesting debate. So thanks for raising it, for what that's worth. To your point, Councillor Nathan, I think it's interesting when you're looking at the minutes here, and we have the minutes which I think actually goes to the heart of this debate. So when you look at the minutes, there we have on page 2 of the minutes, motion, Councillor Mayne, seconded by Councillor Constable, that Mr Bernard be granted an extension of 3 minutes to complete his presentation. In brackets, the motion on being put was declared lost. So we know within our minutes now, and this may be a historical issue as well, it may be a legal issue as well, depends where things play out. But we know within our minutes this individual spoke for 5 minutes, then was not given an extension of 3. So that's on the one hand, that's the official documents. Now we'll go to our video that not everyone watches. In that one, we'll have expunged 12 minutes. I think that's extraordinary. I'm going to now put the word out there. I do think that's extraordinary. It warrants this robust debate because we now have these 2 stories playing in our official records. I think, again, for pure transparency, that doesn't do anything to diminish these minutes. It just helps clarify that something of a peculiar nature did happen. It's the first time we've debated this in 2.5 years, so it's not an everyday event. I think it's worth serious consideration. Otherwise, we're left with a significant lacuna in that people will have to extrapolate. They will have to guess what happened here. What is the issue? Here we have a chance to put that to bed, clarify it now, address it. That's the transparency argument. So look, I think it's a good debate. Thanks for bringing it to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor. If there's no further questions, Councillor McGinley.
So, as seconded to Councillor Constable's new amendment, and particularly to Councillor Nathan, I'd just like to point out the reason I believe our minutes are so minuscule in their detail is because there is a webcast record that one can see for the detail. So if the webcast has been expunged, you lose that detail that the minutes have. Just a very simple example. In normal circumstances on that day, when Councillor Constable put forward his motion for a 3-minute extension, which was seconded by Councillor Mayne, the minutes simply show that the motion was lost. If someone wanted to see who voted for it and who voted against it, normally they'd go and look at the video stream and they could see who put their hand up. That doesn't tell you who voted for it, who voted against it, but people can see it. Take away the video, then the minutes don't have sufficient detail. It's just a point.
And Councillor, one that you might put recommendations in when we do look at our Code of Meeting Practice. Councillor Nathan.
Again, reminding you, Madam Mayor, that I was not present. There's one word that's been bothering me in this entire discussion on the minutes, and that is the word legal and legal advice, for the 2 words. For that reason, I think we've got to be very careful in maintaining the redaction as exists. Thank you.
Councillor, that technically should have been a question because you've already spoken.
Can I get some
Is
clarity?
that true, please, Director Phillips?
I believe it is.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I just need some clarification on that, because I thought that there wasn't any indication in what I was presenting to indicate that there was a legal component, so I just don't know where the comment was coming from Councillor Nathan.
Ask her.
Madam Mayor, I'll ask Councillor Nathan.
Thank you, Councillor Constable. The issue is that on the minutes, there is a very simple statement that a speaker spoke that, and then applied for an extra few minutes, an extension, and that was lost. So if somebody wanted to sit side by side with what is the redaction section of the live streaming, which is a community service rather than a binding document, as I understand it, for this council, they would be able to see where the redaction occurred. And it is on those minutes that live streaming, that it says for legal reasons, is that the phrasing? On legal advice. So that's what's putting a certain amount of doubt in my mind as to whether we should, this body, us 9 elected members, could put ourselves into an invidious situation with a possible legal position happening, with the legal advice that we were offered.
Thank you, Councillor.
I'm just going
Councillors, if there's no further questions...
Just a very quick one, if I could, Madam Mayor, through you, and for Councillor Constable. Just picking up the councillor's point, and I get it, I get the prudence of raising the legal matter here. That, though, as I read it, the minute reflect Mr Bernard was asked to apologise and it was accepted, is purely what happened. That's a truth. So regardless of what path this may or may not go down, that's a statement of truth. So therefore it's given. So there's not a legal aspect to it. It is what it is. Is that the case?
Thank you, Councillor Mayne. That's how I perceive it, and that's how it was worded for that.
Councillors, look, just in response to what's being brought up, I'll draw your attention to 16.2 matters to be included in minutes of a general council meeting. And in point 4, it's clear, minutes are not intended to provide a transcript of the proceedings of the meeting, nor include details of discussion or debate. So, councillors...
Through you, Madam Mayor, that was just not designed. Was that the word? Was designed the word?
No.
Not intended.
Yeah.
Not intended, but it doesn't say we cannot deviate from that.
No,
intent.
it doesn't, Councillor. I'm just making you aware that it is a pretty clear direction, and we are setting a precedent. Just making you aware of that. Councillor McGinley.
Can I make a statement, or do I have to put in a question?
You need to put it as a question.
Okay. Are you aware, Madam Mayor, that, and I would like to repeat, in case it hasn't been noted, that the intention of the minutes might be as you state, but they are such because we do have the live streaming and the webcast. Sorry, if you didn't have the webcast, we would have to revert, I believe, back to verbatim minutes as they used to be done.
Through the
Sorry,
mayor.
I've just heard, and I've just heard a comment from my left, not through the speaker. It says they never were verbatim. I would suggest that in the past they were much more detailed and would give the people a better understanding of what transpired during debates.
Well, through the mayor, just since I have been here as General Manager, which is some time. We've only webcast since 2015. Prior to that time, the minutes were exactly the same in terms of the overall, because we're referring to a regulation set by the Office of Local Government. So this is a regulation that complies in relation to what should be in the minutes, and it just reiterates what Councillor Pollock indicated, which was that it is in relation to council decisions, movers, seconders, amendments and so forth. That is a regulation regardless of whether a council web streams webcast or not.
And Councillor, because you did ask me, was I aware, prior to council, the previous council making the decision to live stream, the minutes were pretty much exactly what we see today. So they weren't greater detail prior to that decision being made, from my experience. Councillors, if there's no further questions, Councillor Nathan, it must be a question.
I have a question, Madam Mayor, to, I think, the General Manager and perhaps Mr. Phillips. There's been the word OLG, or the acronym Office of Local Government, OLG, has been bandied around a fair bit, and there's been a bit of background noise that OLG does not exist. Could you please clarify where it now sits with the new government? Thank you.
Through the Mayor, so our understanding is the Office of Local Government is still the Office of Local Government. It just sits within the Department of Premier and Cabinet. People are still sitting in Nowra as of yesterday. So to all intents and purposes, our understanding is that it has been included in the Department of Premier and Cabinet, but the office as such still is in existence.
Councillor Mayne.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Through
Must
you.
be a question.
Yes, certainly. And I'm not sure which director it's directed at. Is this the first time that we have expunged a presentation by any member of the community? Are we in that sort of uncharted territory as well today?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes.
Councillors, if there are no more questions, I'm going to put the amendment to the vote. The amendment is on the board. Councillors, those in favour? The amendment has been lost. Councillors, we go back to the confirmation of the minutes. I have a mover and seconder. Councillor McGinley?
I'd like to ask for a division on this, please.
Certainly.
Madam Mayor, as I was not here, what happens with me voting or not? Is it an abstention?
No, Councillor, you can still vote.
The only restriction to a councillor that was not in attendance at a meeting is that they cannot move or second those situations.
So, councillors, I'm going to put the matter to the vote, and we've been asked for a division, so I'd ask that you keep your hands up while it's recorded. Councillors, those in favour? Those in favour are myself, Councillor Liz Innes, Councillor Lindsay Brown, Councillor James Thompson, Councillor Maureen Nathan, Councillor Jack Tate and Councillor Rob Pollock. Councillors, those against? Those against are Councillor Anthony Mayne, Councillor Phil Constable and Councillor McGinley. Thank you, councillors.